Shedeur Sanders is falling like a rock in the NFL draft. We're into day 3, still on the board, waiting to get selected, and we're wondering why. Everybody wants to know why. What do you think the why? However, I've seen all the conspiracy theories, NFL against him, too much confidence, other quarterbacks coming off the board, everybody's confused, a lot of confusion. The media is not really relaying anything to us. However, there's some small clues that I've dug up that may or may not be true, but they're clues nonetheless that could inform us and help us with our thought process when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, why he's falling down the board. Before we dig in, though, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because this is what we do here. We look at football, we think outside the box, we critically think, we help you with your fantasy football teams, we look at the data and everything else. The one thing about Shedeur Sanders, though, that we heard straight up from the combine is he did not do well in interviews. We heard that, but it kind of got brushed to the side. However, there were some interviews, some podcasts out there that went more detailed about that, and it sounded like it kind of left a mark.
Now heard from 3 different people that were in interviews with him. He was not interviewing well at all.
Left the meeting feeling like Shedeur Sanders was not overly concerned with what they thought of him. They had a 15-minute meeting with him, and when they were done, they both said in different ways, different words, that they did not feel like Shedeur Sanders cared all that much about what that organization thought of him.
From what I understand, they called it arrogance. He was kind of coming across as almost if he knew more or his way was better. To go through a read progression.
Shedeur Sanders did not take a professional approach to this interview. He wasn't taking it seriously at all. I didn't get the sense that he was taking it seriously. So when you hear it wasn't a professional approach, and you hear he wasn't taking it all that seriously.
However, throughout the process, Shedeur Sanders had opportunities to really revive his stock from that and really let these teams know who he is and let these teams know what he's about. But Mike Mayock, 2 days ago on his podcast, dropped a huge bomb that no one really picked up, and is that the Giants was completely out on him. They brought him up to the board. They went over some concepts, and it did not go too well, and they weren't happy about it. So they talked to Shedeur. They mentioned it to him, asked him about it. Maybe it was abrupt, though. Maybe, looking at things on both ends, maybe they were on the wrong. I don't know, but I'm going off of what he said. And what Shedeur's response was not too good, and that's from Mike Mayock.
Was there any breaking news?
Right.
Nothing breaking, but I'm starting. I read a couple people are like, Shedeur is in play at number 3. Shedeur's not in play at 3. Shedeur's not in play with the New York Giants, as far as I'm told. Shedeur didn't have a great interview with Brian Daboll in a private visit. An install package came in. The preparation wasn't there for it. Got called out on it. Didn't like that. Brian didn't appreciate him not liking it. I've said this before, and it started at the combine, and a couple days after the combine, I don't like saying report. Like, we don't report anything. I shared information that I got that I know if I'm getting it, that information people that are in this business that are really great at their job and talking to a lot of the same people I'm talking to, and probably more. I know more. I was surprised it wasn't being talked about. That Shedeur Sanders, I told you, if you've been following the show from the beginning, I told you there were 2 personnel people that I spoke to who were in the room during interviews, which means they're key parts of the organization. Let's leave it at that. 2 teams drafting in the top 10 with quarterback needs where the interviews did not go well. Not disrespectful, nothing harsh, just felt like the phrase I've been using, and I think it aptly describes it. We didn't get the sense that Shedeur cared all that much about what we thought of him.
Mike Mayock also said a few times throughout the process during the combine interviews that he did not do so well. And then before the draft, we get that little tidbit from NFL.com that he did not interview well. It was the worst that this coach has ever seen. And a lot of people sound off on that.
Bring up the quote. I'm in my feelings about this right now. Maybe it's because the draft is tomorrow. Bring up the quote. Bring it up. The worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. He's so entitled. Horrible. He's not that. Shut up, anonymous coach. I am so triggered by this. Shut up. This is not only anonymous. I think it's tasteless. I think the timing is ridiculous. The worst formal interview I've ever. Is it really? Is it? Or are you just going for a headline? Or maybe have you not been in that many interviews in your career? This is the worst one ever. Or maybe the vibe that you set in the room was critical and Shedeur picked up on that. And maybe he was right because the first second you could, you betrayed the sanctity of that room and went anonymously and started spouting off about this player. He's so entitled. I see entitlement in a grown professional who is going around anonymously destroying young athletes with very personal quotes anonymously as they're about to realize their dream and become professionals. Do not listen to that quote. That quote is bullcrap. It's news. It's worthy. I hate that quote. Listen to Shedeur's teammates who kept picking him up over and over as he got the crap kicked out of him last year, who don't have negative things to say about him, who know him, who have been in rooms with him. Don't listen to this. He says, he's not that good. Well, maybe neither are you, anonymous coach, and maybe that's why you're an assistant coach and not a head coach, and you have been for a long time. I am so triggered by this. I think it's nonsense. I love the piece. It's getting us talking. It's part of the Shedeur experience. But that anonymous, that personal, and that critical at this timing is garbage.
However, when I saw that, I thought it was fake. I just thought it was fake news. And I knew from looking at all the mock drafts, if you looked at all the mock drafts, we had a video a couple days ago about the mock drafts, that he was going to fall a bit in the first round, maybe to the second round. Like maybe to the Saints, maybe to the Steelers. Maybe a team trades up in the back end of the first. Maybe in the second somewhere with one of those early picks. But we did not know that this fall was going to happen so catastrophically. But when you put it together, what he did off the field, on the field, throughout his time at Colorado. But no one even mentioned some of the on-field instances that he had, like shoving referees.
Sanders pushes our referee, Kevin Marr.
Poking players in the eyes. Leaving games early. Stealing a player's mouthpiece and throwing it into the stands. Of course, shit talking in rivalry games, but who wouldn't do that? That's the fun of playing college football.
Are you a real homeboy? Are you a real homeboy? You that same nigga talking shit on Instagram. You talking on Instagram. All right, keep talking about business.
Blaming his offensive line for when things go wrong.
I mean, how many times did Raul get touched?
You said what?
How many times did Raul get touched? There was able, like, of course, whenever you're able to run the ball consistently and whenever you're able to, then that opens up the pass, you know? But it's just like you got to understand, like, what your team good at.
And then you add all this to what he did in those interviews potentially, because he could have got pushed to respond that way. I will definitely say this. If you put it all together, one thing I can definitely say, he's not a perfectly stoic person, but he's still a young man, and he's coming from a different vantage point of being massively rich, which I'm not, so I can't really speak on that. But I can also say maybe when you give him some grace, that, hey, maybe we'll mature out of that to some point. However, he seems poised from what he's came from. On top of that, however, you do see some ruffles on the edges. But again, we do not have the exact details of what went on in those interviews. But the fact is, he got called out on not knowing some concepts in a meeting with Dabble, and maybe with some other teams. Maybe it was worse than that with some other teams. That leaked around the league, and nobody's touching him. Is that right or is that wrong? What do you think about that? Do you want him picked up with your team no matter what? Or is this a thing saying, hey, I'll just go with another backup quarterback since we're in backup quarterback land right now in the draft and pick up one of those? Another thing, and this caught my attention when the Browns started to trade in the first round, First thing Daniel Jeremiah said was that the Browns were getting ammo for quarterbacks in the 2026 NFL draft, and we know that's a more stacked quarterback class where it would drown out this year's quarterback class when it comes to the talent, and there's better talent on the top end. That being said, a lot of these teams might be just looking to 2026 as well, and they're just trying to get their patch-up backups. Looking at that, just trying to get by with what they got with these rookies and with what they already got with their veterans. And on top of that, why get into that noise of what you saw in the meetings? I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying what I just relayed you and the proof that I got. Why handle that when you can just get a quarterback in 2026? The Browns definitely showed that. Daniel Jeremiah was quick to mention that. Like he already knew coming into the draft, like that was a huge possibility. So if it's not just one team, it could be more. So that is something critically thinking about what's going on with no opinion to it. My opinion to it is eventually you just got to draft him. Eventually you just got to do it. From what we saw on the field, he doesn't have perfect arm strength, but he's a very accurate passer. He's helped 2 different collegiate programs, FBS, FCS. On top of that, we do have issues in his play, drifting in the pocket. Pocket presence isn't always there. Don't have a ton of games against top competition. I think 4 games against top 25 defenses throughout his career. And they're not like big name defenses like a Clemson, Notre Dame, or an Alabama, or those SEC schools. It's not like he went against a murderous row. He's got 4 of them in 2 years. So about 2 a year. However, he does have some good performances. That being said, when you look at this fall, it's one of the most historic falls ever in NFL draft history. And you got to understand that there could be even more to this than what we're looking at even here today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I think this is very fascinating, and I keep trying to dig up as much as I can. But going over the clues, backtracking, as I watched every single one of his interviews, putting some of these videos together, I kind of got a good feel of what he is as a person. I honestly think he's a good kid. I think he's a very standout dude from what I've seen. I feel like there's some things where we can grow on from. And he's from a different situation. If I was mega rich like that, I'd be a little different too in some areas as well. However, I think when you look at the talent and you look at what he can do on the field, I think eventually you just got to draft him. Eventually you do. There's a lot of potential there, even as a developmental backup. And I looked at him as a high-end developmental quarterback. High-end developmental quarterbacks can go in the first round, second round, day 2. That could potentially happen with those. But a high-end developmental quarterback with a lot of upside once we get him developed more for the NFL game. And there's some clues to that as well through his play. But nothing like this. Nothing like this going in. And I got videos saying that for 4 days. But all in all, I think he's a good kid. I think he deserves to be drafted. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.